I'm Jessica Ann Pressler, and you've tuned into Your Traitor Within, a podcast that exposes the brutal truths of healing, self-discovery, and breaking free from relentless patterns of self-sabotage. Paulie Calafiore is best known as an athlete and a TV personality with standout appearances on Big Brother and a longtime running cast member on The Challenge. Beyond the screen, Paulie is an outspoken advocate for bisexuality, mental health, therapy, and breaking fashion norms. And soon you'll see him in a new light. He's about to begin filming a feature film. Today, Paulie's here to share his story about his traitor within, his battles with self-sabotage, his path to self-discovery, and how therapy helped him reclaim his truth. It is such a pleasure to see you again and have you on Your Traitor Within. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. It's been a long time.
I know. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I can see you're glowing.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel good. My voice is gone. I've been doing a lot of traveling, a lot of talking, but all good things. And yeah, I'm very excited. I feel like a new man since the last time we spoke.
And I really can. I can see it on you. I can,
Yeah.
not everyone's going to hear, people are hearing you, so I can hear it too, but I can see it.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. What does the phrase traitor within mean to you?
If I'm speaking from my own personal experience, I was always under the mindset that in order to achieve success,
Mhm.
you had to experience some level of, pain, discomfort, bad things had to happen to you. I think that was something that was programmed in me as a child. When you look at certain people who became professional athletes, what they had to make it out of, poverty, they had to make it out of, bad situations, celebrities, artists, and everything. Like they always talk about the struggle, they talk about these things. So that was essentially ingrained in me at a very young age. I was 3 years old when I first started playing soccer. I was 6 years old when I first started wrestling, first started doing martial arts. And, for most of my life, I would say that I wanted, I wanted to be a good kid. I had a good heart. If most people, um, if you talk to most people as I was growing up, they'd say I was a shy kid. But as I started to get into adolescence and, getting older, I started to self-sabotage myself in ways that forced me to experience pain, forced me to experience discomfort in order to almost trigger and catapult a series of time or a specific time period where I would start to work hard and achieve like success. And I would always tend to do it, right before entering preseason of certain sports seasons. So, for the soccer season, that was always around July, knowing that preseason was going to start in August. For wrestling season, that was always around, November, December, the holidays, knowing that the season's in full swing once January starts. And that carried on with me throughout my entire life. Like I would always self-sabotage, whether it be relationships, friendships, business situations, putting myself through discomfort, whether it was, abusing myself mentally and emotionally. I would do things in order to put myself in a position to feel motivated to work harder than everybody else, and outwork people and outperform people and do all these things. And now that I'm in a different headspace, I've realized that, the discomfort that people talk about and the struggle that people talk about when trying to achieve success is doing the mundane things day in and day out over and over again, discipline wise, repetitively, in order to, get the momentum to see success.
So then how do you get over the no pain, no gain concept?
I think it got to a point in my life where, my body has gotten a little bit older. So I have to be a little bit smarter and strategic with how I train. And also mentally, I'm at a point where I was like, you know what? I'm a relatively smart guy. The only time that I ever feel like I'm not in control of myself is when I'm not regulating my emotions the way they need to be. And the only time I ever seem to not be regulating my emotions is when I'm self-sabotaging myself to be emotionally unstable in order to experience these periods of depression and then take that depression and, generate it into like these manic things. And I'm like, wait, I'm not bipolar. So why am I doing this?
Mhm.
Right? Why am I doing this to myself when I could just remain even keeled and I could almost just be happy all the time and
Mhm.
experience happiness and peace all the time without the depression, without running myself into the ground. So I had to go through a lot of therapy. I had to have a lot of honest conversations with myself. I had to understand a lot of things about myself. One of the main things was that I created a alter ego persona that essentially was a narcissist in order to protect my inner vulnerable child. So I created this personality that was all of these things that you see success to be, like a mob boss, a extremely successful finance person, extremely successful swaggy athlete that has all this confidence in themselves. And I had to realize that, you know, you can be all of those things without having that persona. Like you can be confident, you can achieve success without creating this narcissist that goes above and beyond to protect all of the vulnerabilities that they have. So, learning essentially how to take my vulnerabilities and make them my strengths and not be afraid to show them off, and not be afraid to just live in my truth and be okay with saying, yeah, you know what? Like, yeah, I have these vulnerabilities. Doesn't make me any less than a man, doesn't make me any less of a warrior, doesn't make me any less of a success. Um, and I can show you them because I'm not afraid. And I always lived in this fear of like, man, I always have to be a super alpha guy because that's just the laws of the jungle around other men. You
Where
know,
did you get that message from?
huh?
Where did you get that message from? Why did you think that?
Just things you experience as a child. I got into a lot of fights growing up. Being exposed into the sports world at a very young age, it was a kill or be killed mentality. Same thing with how young boys are and how young men are, where it's like you have to, if you, you know, who's the toughest of the tough, who can defend themselves, who's the strongest, fighter. Like that's just something that men have to deal with, especially going through athletics, right? Because you have to battle other athletes, but then you're also battling every other asshole that's like, oh, that's a good athlete, I want to try and measure up against this person, so I want to see what they're all about. Growing up, not really understanding what my sexuality was, but getting a lot of attention from men and from women, that also garners a lot of things from other unhealed people. If men have a tendency to, you know, if they see another man getting attention, if they're not getting that same attention, then they come and they try and challenge, the man. And now you're put in a position. Do I walk away from this, or this guy's challenging my masculinity in front of a group of people? Or do I have to defend myself? So it's just been conditioned from a very young age. And my parents and my family, very old school Italians. So like in our mentality, there isn't like the walking away aspect of things. Like you walk away from things when it comes to your family, your loved ones, things like that. But to a stranger, walk away, never. You know what I mean? Like you gotta defend your honor. So it was unlearning all of those things and being like the warrior in the garden mentality, where it's like I have all these capabilities still, but I'm at peace and I'm in my garden, and I'm not going to let anything break my peace. I'm just going to be in my garden.
Wow. And you, it's incredible. I have to say that what you've overcome is any more than I've seen anyone overcome. And you must have worked really hard. You must have great therapy. And I am just enamored in awe because,
Well, I mean, you were there, so what I went through. Like I took it very seriously. I went through 8 weeks of outpatient where it was 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. So I almost like I took it upon myself to be like, no, there needs to be a change because I'm gonna either end up in jail or I'm gonna end up dead. I can't keep going down this path. My brain, the chemicals in it can't handle this up and down anymore. So I need to learn how to be in control of all of those things. And it was a lot dealing with all those things. But I looked at it as these are 8 weeks. I can put in 5 hours a day for 5 days a week. That's 25 hours a week. I was like, let's multiply that out. I'm putting in 200 hours in 8 weeks. And I was like, okay, if I were to do therapy once a week for 1 hour a week, I'm only getting 52 hours of therapy in a year. I was like, so what if I just jumpstart it this way? I'm almost getting like 200 hours. I'm getting 200 hours of therapy. That's what, 4 years of therapy at that point? You know what I mean? And then I'm like, and then if I go to therapy twice a week for 2 hours, for an hour each session, now that's 2 hours a week. Well, now I'm going 104 hours. Like I really broke it down logically and was like, okay, so if I do that, then within a year of doing this, I'm going to get over 300 hours of therapy. By the time this June comes, I'm going to have over 300 hours of therapy that I got under my belt, which is more than what most people do in their lifetime. And I was like, I'm treating it like I treat my fitness, where it's like I work out every day to keep my body in shape. I am aware of my diet for that reason. The brain is a muscle and it needs to be worked out. And that's how I look at it now. And I have to do it for the rest of my life. Otherwise, I don't want to go back to where I was.
I mean, truly, you reprogrammed your brain. That's what you did.
Yeah.
And so your maintenance program is to do all these other things for yourself, and you're still in therapy. You're still,
Yeah, I'm still in therapy. Now the conversations in therapy are just they're very casual and relaxed now. And now I can actually like bring up situations and I can actually talk through it and be like, and this is what I went, how I handled it, and this is the thought process that I was thinking. And I've been able to implement other things that are really great. So like I made it a point to be like, okay, well, I have tendencies of ADHD, of OCD, of like fixation, of all of these things. Like, how do I keep those in control without having to be on medication? And like openly, in the beginning, I did have to be on medication. I was on mood stabilizers, but I did not want that to be my crutch. And I didn't want to rely on it. And I always told my therapist, I said, as soon as I could get off of these, I'm getting off of them. Every time they wanted to up the dosage, I was like, no, I'm going to stay on the dosage that I'm on because I'm going to wean off of these eventually. And then I did, I implemented things into my life. Like I picked up the guitar again. I didn't realize when I was playing sports and when I was playing the guitar, how much the guitar helped with my mental health by just being able to focus on learning new songs and then playing those songs and then the vibrations of the acoustic guitar, what it does to your ears and your eardrums and your brain. Picking up the drums. So I travel with my little mini rubber drum pad everywhere and the drumsticks. And once again, it's just coming up with patterns and repetition and, learning a skill. And like, once again, the thudding and the drum beat, like it does something to the brain, like the vibrations and all of that stuff. Learning Spanish and learning Italian. So like unlocking a different aspect of my brain in terms of like that learns languages. So now I've really dove into an interesting realm of like, what can the brain unlock and what can the brain learn, and diving into my spirituality and my faith. And, now getting into all the different levels of spirituality and studying all these different things about parallel universes and, past lives and how to unlock different things in meditation and, affirmations and how we are living in a vibrational world. Like our vibrations are what we can become. And, ever since making those changes in June, like I haven't had to go and work to get things. Things have just been coming to me. And it's crazy how that works.
universe. So someone once asked me what I thought recovery was or what recovery was for me. And it was to be at a place where all the stuff was gone so I could just be me. And it sounds like you're at a place now where the stuff is away so you can just be you. And you're, you know, which is spiritual and a musician and just all these different parts of you.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm still the athlete. But I'm like, you know what? Like I really I had to let go of the ego
Hmm.
because that ego that I had as an athlete was still there. So I was getting myself into trouble because I was always like, man, I have to be the best. I have to be the best on the challenge. If people question whether I'm good or not, I have to destroy them. And now I'm just in my own lane and I'm happy with what's coming. I mean, like I'm in WWE school preparing for a WWE tryout, which is something I never thought I'd be doing at 36.
What
Huh?
is that?
Oh, like the World Wrestling Federation, for like the WWE with, like what Hulk Hogan was in and what The Rock was in and all those things. Um, you know, Filming a movie where I'm a important supporting lead role for a big production company. Um, you know,
Tell me a little bit about that and how it feels to be doing something that's new.
it feels great. I mean, I love the fact that the director kind of sought me out and wrote the role specifically for me. Spoiler alert. I guess I'm really not this aspect of things anymore. I'm not a douchebag anymore. But he wrote the role. My character's bisexual, kind of like asshole, like douchebag, which, you know, if you look at my TV career on reality TV, like, yeah, I was somewhat of an asshole. And I am bisexual, but it's been really fun being able to tap into that role. And it's crazy how the role has grown and expanded because I got offered the role prior to going to therapy. And I remember doing the role and I was kind of like, I was going through the lines, I was going through the script, but it was a little bit too personal for me. So I was kind of like, I wasn't really having fun with the role. But ever since kind of getting out of the therapy thing, like I really am having fun with the role and like the director and everybody else involved. Like the other actors and actresses and the producers who have, been sitting through the table reads and stuff with me. Like, every time we do a table read, like the feedback is just so positive and it's just so, great. And they're like, wow, you're really like, taking this role and, like adding your own lines and adding your own flavor and adding your own personality and adding all these things. And I don't think I ever would have been able to do that if I didn't first kill my ego and become comfortable with that and be all right with, like I feel like I don't have to protect my inner vulnerable child anymore. Like I feel like I'm nourishing it. And one thing that I always reaffirm myself with is, constantly telling my, the inner child's like, wow, you'd be proud of, like you should be proud of like what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that you need to protect yourself from because like we're having fun, man. Like this is everything that you dreamed of as a kid because it is. I remember getting on tables in my basement for my father, dressing up like Steven Tyler, singing into a microphone that I made, doing impressions of my favorite actors and comedians and, you know, doing things like this. So it's like, this is what I dreamed of doing as a kid. I also remember watching the WWE and like me and my friends would always like do the different moves. I always thought I was going to be a superstar when it came to sports and athletics. That didn't pan out. But maybe I can still achieve all these other dreams. And I don't say maybe, like I'm going to achieve these dreams. They're happening in real time. So it's like I'm able to talk to my inner vulnerable child and be like, dude, remember when we were dreaming about this as a kid?
But also to have compassion, even of your traitor within that, because your traitor within was trying to protect you. It just did, it wanted to help. It just wasn't doing it in a way that was.
Yeah. And I mean, I would love to understand that more, from you. I'd love to, read this book. Because I feel like I'll be reading this book and I'll be like, oh, okay. Now I feel like I could read this book
Mhm.
and be able to be like, oh, okay, yep, these are exactly because I'm able to pinpoint that now, not just recently, but throughout my entire life. Like I'm able to pinpoint exactly the trigger points of my life that put me on different trajectories. I remember the final breaking point in my 20s. And then I remember again the final breaking point literally last year. And here I am, 36 years old, the happiest I've been. Everybody who has interacted with me since then, they're like, you look younger, you seem healthier, you have a glow, your energy, we are drawn to you. And I remember a time in my life where that was the case for me. Before things in my 20s happened, and it's true. Like I do really feel like there was a demon that possessed me for all that time. And, once the demon was gone, I like aged in reverse,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Once you put the traitor away,
Yeah.
you're free. You're free to be you,
Yeah. I
and
feel
you're a
free.
beautiful soul, truly. And
Thank you.
I'm so happy because I've seen the change. I've seen it was beautiful then, but it's just wonderful to see this weight off of you so that
Yeah.
you just experience life without the weight. And there may be moments, and maybe there won't be, where you may see the weight or the trader may try, but you have the tools now to
Yeah.
put your trader away.
The trader for sure tries. I mean, but it's the concept of, the I've just come to the realization, and I had to go through this, you know this. I mean, I went through Sexaholics Anonymous. And the one thing that taught me is that me as a man, I'm not in control. I cannot control that addiction. I cannot control that demon. So I have to put my faith in something higher. In God, I believe that God and the universe are like one and the same. I believe that the universe has its own set of laws. I believe that God created the universe. I don't believe in a formal religion. Like I think I've studied enough of all of the religions where all of them have their great takeaways. I just believe in a higher power, and that is my own connection spiritually with that. And it's the same thing with this. Like I've come to the realization that my traitor is always going to exist. Those two wolves always exist, right? There's a good one, there's a bad one. You got to starve one, you got to feed one. So every day when I wake up, I don't assume that my good wolf is going to be playing nice, and I don't assume that my bad wolf is tied down. I wake up every morning walking into, the household that is my brain, being like, where's that bad wolf? Got him. Let me tie that mother mofo up and put him in a cage. All right, let me go find my good wolf now. All right, found my good wolf. Let me feed him. Let me water him. Let me nourish him. It's the same thing with my trader. I do feel the tendencies come up. I feel these things, within me because they're never going to be gone. They do exist. But I am in control of them because I understand that I'm not in control of them.
Yeah.
So
Right.
knowing that they exist, it's like they say the best trick that the devil ever played on everybody is convincing everybody he doesn't exist.
Right.
That's kind of the same thing with your Traitor Within. Like the best trick that it can play on you is that it's gone and that you've healed and that you no longer need therapy. You no longer need to work on your mental. And then second that you go, it's like, all right, I'm not going to get you in that first month,
Right in.
that second month, or that 6 months, but after a year, 2 years, it's going to chip away and I'm coming back in. So I'm just choosing to not let that person come back in. And it's been a beautiful experience.
And I love seeing that you love yourself in a very healthy way
Yeah,
because you're doing this.
it is healthy. I used to be so afraid to, just speak freely about things. And I think going on television kind of did that for me.
Mhm.
That was the first time I ever in my life, experienced having to be mindful of like what you say and what you do. And honestly, like, ever since healing everything within, I think I'm able to say, whatever I want because it's not coming across and it's not coming off with like malicious intent. Like there's no anger or emotion to it. You know what I mean? Like it's just me speaking about a situation, or me speaking about a topic. And I'm at a point where I'm like, is everybody gonna love what I have to say? No, but I'm not here to please anybody. I'm just here to say what I'm gonna say. And if you enjoy what I have to say and if you enjoy me, cool, you're gonna rock with me. If not, you don't have to. That's life. It's
But I
part
will
of
say
the journey.
that thank you for being so vulnerable though, because what you're going to do by being so vulnerable, by telling your story here and all the other places that you tell your story, that you're going to teach others to do the same. And people will see themselves in your story and they'll see that your successes and they'll see what the truth of not success, like times when things were harder, and they'll identify themselves, and they'll realize that they're not alone. There's that they'll hopefully get rid of the shame that is associated that we all feel when we, and yeah, and just so happy for you. Really, I am.
Oh, thank you. I can tell. I can tell. You've always been amazing. I mean, you know exactly where I was in June, 2024. I mean, it was, if I had not experienced other low moments in my life, like that would have been that. But I think this one was much better for me, because it like what I needed was um I needed that alter ego completely shattered, because like it became so powerful that it had control over me completely. And as I was trying to talk to it to essentially be like, no, let me be me, let me do this. It was like, no, look at all these success we've had, look at everything we've achieved. You know, we don't need you. You know what I mean? And I like to find the silver lining in everything. So like that earth shattering moment was so amazing for me because it left that persona so weak and vulnerable that I was able to like finish it off and be like, I'm gonna bury you so far down that it's gonna take a long time for you to even scratch the surface. And as long as I keep doing all of these things, I'm essentially always piling dirt on top of that person so that it never comes back. And I think you nailed it on the head. It is, I did always look at any failure like shame, like very shameful. And I was embarrassed of the shame. But once I stopped caring about the shame, that became my power, with everything.
Mhm.
And it's been beautiful. It's been a beautiful journey. Nothing embarrasses me anymore.
Mhm.
I just am who I am. And I don't know. Like there could be things that could be embarrassing. I don't know. Like I could squat down and rip my pants and in front of a million people and everybody could sit there and laugh at me. And I'll be like, well, it happens to the best of us. So it
Would
is what
agree.
it is,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
so, is there anything that you would like to say to someone or to say to yourself, if you were younger? Is there any advice you could give?
I want to just give this advice, to everybody. And I would want to tailor fit it to the men out there. But I am going to generalize it and say to everybody because I kind of feel like because men haven't really been men in a long time, I feel like a lot of women have had to, take on more of a protective role of themselves. Which I think also has its own mental health issues. So I'm just going to put this out there to both genders, to everybody out there, that doing the work on yourself, although it will be scary, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. You really have to start paying attention and regulating. Because if I would have started paying attention and regulating myself earlier, like my friends and my family and the people who loved me and the people who were closest to me, they were telling me that they saw this different person and I just didn't believe them. I couldn't believe it. But it was that other persona that was, essentially sabotaging me and being like, they don't know what they're talking about, even though these are the people who care about me the most and love me the most. There's always a little bit of truth in anything that somebody says, even if it's your enemy, even if it's your best friend, there's a little bit of truth in everything. We should always self-regulate. So now, no matter what anybody says to me, I am going to sit there and I'll first regulate and be like, well, is there any truth to what they're saying? And I'm really going to dive down and be like, where could they have got this from? What did I do? What was I giving off? What was I presenting that clearly made them interpret something a certain way to speak this or say this of me?
To do that, you had to have gotten rid of your ego because
Yes.
you didn't, you would have been very self-protective and you would have been, they're lying, they don't know, whatever,
Yeah.
and that's
And I guess the lesson is you just got to kill the ego first. The ego, I never understood it because once again, I always thought that you needed an ego in order to succeed. Like, because being an athlete, like everybody's always trying to get in your head. But once again, I was mistaking an ego for confidence. And being truly confident is the best thing that you can be to yourself. Like truly confident, where it's like things that used to maybe be able to get to me or pick out my insecurities or get me to react a certain way, like they don't anymore. And my responses are just night and day different.
So you feel at peace then, I assume.
I
Is this
feel
something?
at peace all the time. And also just like the clarity that you get. Like I feel like I can now like literally see people's energies and absorb their frequencies in a way, to the point where now as I regulate my relationships, and I regulate like business partnerships and everything, I see everything so clearly. Like anything, right? Any type of relationship, partners, friends, family, strangers, business things. Like I just see it so clear in a sense where I'm just like, man, I now also see how I was making mistakes in business and in friendships because I wasn't protecting my peace and my space. But now I can see things so clearly. So I can see when somebody's full of shit coming to me with a business proposition. I can see, when somebody has bad intentions, trying to come in, my friend group, I'm so at peace with myself that like my time is the most valuable thing right now. Like my time is the most valuable thing. So if you're going to waste my time, I don't care if we've been friends forever. I don't care if we're family. Like if you waste my time, that I'm not going to be mean about it, but I am just going to distance myself and I am just going to cut you off in order to protect my peace.
Making good choices for yourself.
Yeah,
You've also come out of the fog because
I've
now
come out of the fog.
you can see things more clearly. You can see the
Yeah.
world clearly.
Yeah, I never really understood that. I always thought that I had a pulse on the world because I was always really good at observing people. So I always had the ability to like have people dialed into a T, like this is exactly who this person is.
Mhm.
And like whether they showed it immediately or whether they showed it in 3 months or a year down the road, it always came to light. Um, but with that made me feel like, yeah, no, I've got it all figured out. But now in this headspace, I'm like, I actually didn't know anything. And now the best part about this headspace is I still feel like I know nothing. And going into that mindset and approaching that, the just approaching life with the mindset of wanting to take in and learn as much as you can, is really eye opening and mind expanding.
Exciting.
It's very exciting. Like I almost feel like my life is starting over again. And I'm gonna be, I'm 36 now. I'll be turning 37 in November. Knock on wood, I can live until my 80s. So it's like, I look at this being like, I have at least another 35, 36 years of being able to just really truly enjoy life before it starts to,
And
you
what a
know,
gift, because many people don't get to where you are, and some people do, but they do it when they're much older. And you have given yourself a gift of all this time now to be able to look in life this way, you know,
yeah.